The night had been long, the kind that pressed into Mara Lewis's bones and made every minute feel heavier than the last. She had been on her feet since late afternoon, moving to the familiar rhythm of the convenience store like a ghost, restocking shelves, wiping counters, ringing up customers who barely looked at her face. By the time the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting pale orange light through the front windows, all she wanted was to go home. The saw from the coolers echoed through the quiet store, steady and mechanical, a sound she had grown used to over the years. The smell of old coffee grounds lingered in the air, bitter and warm. Outside, the world looked calm beneath the fading light, cars passing lazily on the road beyond the parking lot. It was peaceful, too peaceful. Mara wiped down the counter one last time, her movements slow with exhaustion, but her heart light with relief. She checked the clock on the wall. 10 minutes past closing. Good. She was ready to turn off the lights, lock the door, and head home to her small apartment where a hot shower and silence waited. She reached for the key to close the register. That was when the doorbell chimed. The sound sliced through the quiet like a warning. Mara's hand froze midair. 3 men walked in, their laughter low and careless, their boots thudding against the tile floor. Something in the air shifted instantly. Before she could greet them, before she could even speak, she felt something cold settle over her, not from the air conditioning, but from their eyes. The tall one in front smirked, his gaze crawling over the store and then landing on her. He moved with a lazy confidence that made her stomach twist. "We're not here to buy," he said, his grin sharp and unsettling. His 2 friends followed close behind, laughing under their breath. Their shadows stretched long across the floor, dark shapes that seemed to swallow the light. Mara's heart began to race. She glanced again at the clock, then at the door behind them. She was alone. Or, at least, she thought she was. If you believe kindness, courage, and standing up for what's right can still change the world, then please take a moment to comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. It helps stories like this reach more hearts. Mara forced herself to breathe. She straightened her shoulders, even as fear crept into her chest. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling despite her effort to keep it steady. "We're closed." The men didn't leave. They stepped closer. The one wearing a leather jacket laughed. His name tag, crooked and scratched, read Kyle. "Closed," he echoed mockingly. "We're just getting started." One of the others leaned on the counter, pretending to study the candy bars as if this were all a game. The third man, dressed in a red flannel, moved down the side aisle, positioning himself near the exit, blocking it. The air felt heavy, suffocating. Mara's fingers curled tightly around the edge of the counter. She thought of her mother at home, waiting, always worrying. She remembered her mother's words, spoken so many times they echoed in her mind now. You never know who walks into your life. Some come to hurt you. Some come to save you. Kyle leaned closer, invading her space. His breath reeked of alcohol. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" he said, his tone dripping with mock concern. "Nervous?" She didn't answer. That was when he grabbed the front of her red shirt and yanked her forward. The fabric tore near the collar with a sharp, tearing sound that felt louder than it was. The noise broke something inside her more than the ripped cloth ever could. Mara gasped, stumbling back, trying to pull free. Kyle's grip was tight. The other 2 men burst into laughter, loud, cruel, and mocking. "Guess we found some entertainment tonight." One of them sneered. Tears burned in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Her mind raced, searching for anything. Something to grab, somewhere to run, but fear rooted her to the floor. Then, as if the universe itself had heard her silent plea, a sound came from the back of the store. A soft thud, a step, then another. The laughter stopped. All 3 men turned their heads toward the noise, confusion flashing across their faces. Mara followed their gaze, her breath catching in her throat. 3 shadows emerged slowly from between the aisles. They moved with calm precision, heavy boots echoing against the clean tiles. The men who had been laughing just seconds before now stood silent, their confidence draining away. The leader stepped forward into the light. He was tall and rugged, in his late 40s, with a thick salt and pepper beard and tattoos crawling down his arms. A black leather vest rested on his shoulders, worn and unmistakable. Across the back and chest was an emblem that made the air feel suddenly tighter. Hell's Angels. A patch on his chest read RL. CHLLS. Behind him walked two others, one bald with a long dark beard, the other younger, with shoulder-length hair and sunglasses perched on his head. They carried themselves like men who had seen enough of the world to recognize trouble the moment it showed its face. Mara stood frozen behind the counter, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. The bikers stopped a few steps away. Silence filled the space between them and the gang, thick and unbroken. The leader's eyes locked onto Kyle's hand, still gripping Mara's torn shirt. His voice was low, steady, and dangerous. You might want to let go of that. Kyle chuckled, trying to sound tough, though his voice cracked slightly. What's it to you, old man? The biker didn't answer. He simply took one slow, deliberate step forward. The air shifted. Kyle hesitated. His grip loosened. Then, reluctantly, he released Mara's shirt and stepped back. His smirk faded. His friend went quiet, suddenly unsure. You boys had your fun, the biker said calmly, his tone soft but sharp enough to cut. Now you're going to walk out. Calmly. Kyle spat on the floor. You think you can scare us? He snapped, though fear crept into his eyes. That was his mistake. The younger biker behind the leader cracked his knuckles, the sound sharp in the silence. The bald one tilted his head, a faint smirk touching his lips, as if he'd seen this exact moment play out 100 times before. The leader's eyes never left Kyle's. No, he said evenly. I don't think. What happened next wasn't a brawl. It was a storm. Kyle lunged forward, shoving the biker with all the reckless bravado he could muster. But his arm was caught mid-motion. There was a swift twist, a calculated step, a sharp sound, and suddenly Kyle was on the floor, groaning, the wind knocked clean out of him. The second man rushed in, panic fueling his movement, but the bald biker intercepted him effortlessly. He slammed the thug against the counter, so hard the shelves rattled and candy bars spilled onto the floor. The third man froze completely. His hand shot up, his bravado evaporating. He backed away until his shoulders hit the door. The bell above it chimed wildly as he turned and ran. The others scrambled after him, stumbling and shouting something no one cared to hear. In seconds, they were gone. Silence returned. Mara stood behind the counter, her torn shirt clutched in her trembling hands, eyes wide with disbelief. Her knees felt weak, but she was still standing. The leader turned toward her, his expression softened instantly, the hardness melting away. You okay, miss? He asked gently. She nodded, though her throat felt tight. Thank you, she whispered, her voice cracking. He gave a small nod, as if it were nothing at all. Keep your lights on a few more minutes, he said quietly. You're never as alone as you think. Then, without another word, the three bikers walked toward the door. Their reflections flickered in the glass as they stepped back into the fading sunlight. Moments later, the roar of motorcycles filled the air, powerful and brief, before fading into the distance. Mara stood still long after they were gone. Her heartbeat slowly returned to normal. Tears slipped down her cheeks, not from fear this time, but from relief. She looked out the window at the empty parking lot and felt something she hadn't felt in a long while. Safety. That night, Mara learned something she would never forget. Heroes don't always wear badges or capes. Sometimes they wear leather vests, ride loud motorcycles, and carry a quiet kind of kindness that doesn't need applause or recognition. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that goodness can come from the most unexpected souls, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to HOA Gride /